I'm Victoria Pearson, but you can call me V. I have been a practicing witch for over 25 years now, and every single week I come on this channel and I share just a tiny little way that I have made my life a little bit better. I invite you to come along on the growth journey with me. Every 3 or 4 weeks we do a particularly witchy video, and that's what we're going to do this week. I have been promising you this one for a little while now. I do apologise for that. I will explain the reasons why it took me so long in a second. But today we are talking about the difference between a justice spell and a vengeance spell. Now, the reason that I ended up down this rabbit hole in the first place was because I was doing a justice spell at home and I needed to look up the substitution for an ingredient. After I'd googled that, I popped onto Instagram and suddenly my feed was full of justice spells. The whole feed was full of justice spells that looked pretty much identical. But the reason that I'm putting justice spells in little air quotes there was because every single one of them was actually a revenge spell. Some of them were packaged slightly differently. This will be the you'll get yours spell or the justice for everybody spell, but they were all basically the same. They were big psychic slap because somebody has upset me spell. Nothing wrong with that, but you need to know that that is what you are doing. So to give you an example of the use of a justice spell, I'll tell you what I was actually using it for. So I had a friend come to me and say to me that they were in a conundrum, that they had developed a conflict with somebody that they were close to. Both of them had grievances that were reasonable. Neither of them were really in the wrong, but it had escalated. The situation had become heated. There was possibly legal stuff getting involved, and nobody could see a way forward. That is what a justice spell is for. When no one can see the way forward, and it's not really anybody's fault, and everybody's a little bit in the right, a little bit in the wrong, and we need to cut through all that noise and get to a position where everybody can have some peace. That is what a justice spell is for. Whereas, if somebody has hurt you, or upset you, or hurt or upset somebody that you love, and you want to punish them for that, make them feel the pain that you are feeling, that is not a justice spell. That is a revenge or a vengeance spell. And this is why I tell you that it is so important that you know what the ingredients you are using in your practice are for. Get to know your correspondences, get to know what individual ingredients do in a spell, and you will easily be able to see the difference. When I opened Instagram that day and saw all of these justice spells, they all had an awful lot in common. In fact, I suspect that 1 or 2 creators have done this and then lots and lots have followed, because these kind of spells are a popular short form video that you can do easily and that will get lots of views. So I assume it's mostly people that don't really know what they're doing. And so writing somebody's name down as a tag lock for a spell is completely neutral, right? So you start by writing the person's name and you might fold it away from you. Already there we're doing a banishment spell. Okay, we're not doing anything to do with a justice spell. That's a banishment spell. If I'm folding something away from myself, that means I'm trying to get it away from me. So I'm already putting a kind of judgment on the person whose tag lock I have written, whose name I've written down. The name represents the person in the spell. And that's why in fairy tales, you shouldn't go around telling elves and fairies what your names are, because then they have power over you. And that's how we're using it. We use the person's name or some other way of representing them, like a piece of their hair or a photograph of them or something like that. When you're folding something away from you, you're banishing it away from you. And so you're kind of already saying this is the bad guy in this situation. In a justice spell, you wouldn't necessarily be saying that there is any one bad guy in a situation. And then take that name and put it in a lemon that we've cut in half. Well, lemon is an irritant. It's an acid. It eats away at the person. That is what, and you're putting it in the middle of a whole lemon as well. That's not even just like a couple of drops to make you uncomfortable enough to change your behavior. That is a full souring spell we're doing now. And then they add chilies, which are also irritant. And then they add pepper, which is also irritant. And then they stick it with needles and pins and nails, which are all irritants. They're all designed to harm. What you're doing there is a hex. And there's nothing particularly wrong with doing a hex if that's what you want to do. If somebody has really hurt you and you want to hurt them back, well, who am I to stop you doing that? That is up to you and your own personal moral framework. But it's not a justice spell. That's not what justice is. Lady Justice is blindfolded because she doesn't pick and choose and she doesn't have a favourite. If you want real justice in a spell, you have to be prepared for the fact that you might get a little bit of a spanking from that too, because we always think we're doing the right thing, but we don't always, because we're humans. We mess up, we make mistakes, we have our own biases in things. We can't always see the impacts of our own behavior and know when we are doing something that maybe isn't in alignment with our best selves. And so if you're doing the justice spell and you are a party in that spell, you've got to be prepared for you to have a bit of an outcome that you might not like, because that is what's just. So justice spells would involve anything that represents balance, a black and a white stone of equal size, or two candles of opposite colours and equal size, or a yin yang or set of scales. The justice card herself, any representation of Lady Justice, would all be the sorts of ingredients that you would use in a justice spell that you wouldn't use in a vengeance spell. In a vengeance spell, you have a target and you want that person to suffer. All of those ingredients that I mentioned before, the lemons, the chilies, the pepper, the nails, they are all designed to make somebody suffer. Putting somebody's name or photograph inside a mirror can be a vengeance spell as well. It's unlikely to be a justice spell. It's designed to make a person have to take a good look at themselves, get stuck in the consequences of their actions until they change. That is more of a vengeance thing probably than a justice thing. But a justice thing you should be going into not really knowing what the outcome is going to be, except that it's going to bring peace to all parties. The idea of a justice spell is to bring back balance, to bring back harmony, to bring back peace in a situation in a way that leaves everybody feeling satisfied and like they got what they deserved. Whereas if you're doing a spell where you're like, I'm going to make you get what you deserve, that is a vengeance spell. And there's nothing particularly wrong, I don't think, with using a revenge or vengeance spell if you have been badly wronged. But I would say if you intend to do that, my advice as a long-term practitioner is make sure you have fully calmed down from your anger before you do a magical working. This kind of magical working, whether justice or vengeance, actually is not going to work very well with big angry feelings about it. If you need to get rid of your big angry feelings about it, what you're going to do is you're going to get a jar of water and you are going to scream all your rage into that water and you're going to put a lid on it, and then later when you use your justice or your vengeance spell, you're going to use that water in it, war water. You're going to shake it up, you're going to scream in it, and you can put them in a jar with it or do whatever you want to do later when you have calmed down. That energy will remain stored in that water for you so that you can use that angry energy, but in a way that is much more controlled and directed. Because when we are absolutely fuming and we feel hurt and we feel betrayed, we are too angry to be able to be doing a proper working. Almost every time that a new practitioner has come to me and said that something has gone wrong with their spell, it's either they've included ingredients without knowing why, and those ingredients have unbalanced the spell, or they've done it when they're far too emotional. When we're angry, our energy is angry, it's scattered, it isn't focused in the right way. Wait for your anger to become quiet rage, and then your spell will work much better. But with a justice spell, you need to be calm and detached and completely aloof from the situation, which is why it's a difficult spell to do. It involves ingredients that can be difficult to obtain sometimes, like courthouse dirt, which was very difficult to obtain if everywhere the courthouses are now is all concrete. And if any witches do know of a substitution for it, please let me know, because I could not find one and it was very frustrating. I had to go quite a long way to get the ingredients that I needed, and the courthouse dirt was the most difficult to obtain. And the reason that I'm just telling you about this spell right now and not showing you is a bit embarrassing, actually, because I always say to you guys, don't burn your freaking house down. That's the golden rule. What's the number one rule? Don't burn your house down. Tie your hair back. Don't wear long flowing sleeves. Make sure you've got something to douse your flames. And did I do any of that stuff? Of course not. And so the justice spell that I actually did involved getting 2 candles, carving the name of one party on one and the other party on the other. I anointed them both in peace oil because I wanted this to bring about a peaceful resolution. Stuck them both onto a plate with a justice candle in the middle. So it was carved with scales and it had the word justice on it, and it was ever so slightly taller than the other 2 candles. And I tied a cord and I made it very, very knotty because it's a very knotty problem. So that's to represent the problem. And that cord wound around both of the candles, including the justice candle, to represent the problem. And the idea being that as the justice candle burns down, it will burn through those cords, releasing both people from the problem so that we can work towards a justice outcome. I had my petition paper underneath my justice candle, and I tried to put just a couple of little drops of justice oil on my candle. What I didn't realise was that my justice oil didn't have the lid on properly, and I didn't notice when I was pouring because I was distracted and talking to somebody, and it poured a lot of oil over the candle and the paper and the string. And I didn't notice until halfway through the spell when I was thinking, these flames are pretty big. Now, I had picked up the piece of paper that was on fire with metal tweezers, thinking that the oxygen flowing around it would sort of make it burn up and go out, and it didn't work. And the tweezers were beginning to get hot, and so I dipped them in the big jug of water that I had next to me to douse the flames just in case. However, because it was an oil fire, as soon as that tiny little drop of water that came off my tweezers flicked onto the fire, it spat everywhere. And I don't know if you know this, most people should know this, but it was only in the very back of my mind. If you dump water on an oil fire, what happens is that oil spreads everywhere. It sort of explodes, and little bits of burning oil will go all over the room. And if you happen to be, like I was, right next to your curtains or your sofa, or you've got like quite long hair or a big flowy dress on, that can get real dangerous real quick. Luckily, I did notice that it was an oil fire seconds before I poured water all over it, and instead ran to my kitchen and got salt to douse it with instead. If you're putting out an oil fire, salt or a lid that's going to get rid of the oxygen is the only real way to do it. And so I ended up grabbing my expensive altar salt, which was quite upsetting. You can use table salt for spells, and I often do, but sometimes you want your fancy salt, don't you? I don't have any fancy salt now because I poured it all into me spell. But it seems that the spell still worked. The situation seems to have resolved quite a bit. Threats of legal action on both sides have subsided, and although they might not ever be truly friends, I think that they are both feeling fairly satisfied with the outcome, and so it's a good outcome for the spell. That outcome wouldn't have happened if I had popped onto Instagram and got myself a little justice spell there and put one party's name in a lemon and stuck it with rusty nails, and we would all still be fighting now, and I would probably be involved in it as well. Everybody would be at each other because that's really angry, irritable energy, and that is not the way to carve your path to peace. So the TLDR of the whole thing is make sure you know what your ingredients are for, because that is why so many people are getting misled about what their spells are doing, because they don't have that basic knowledge in colour correspondences, herbal correspondences, or why they're doing a particular thing. Like I said to you in my video about my 5 witchy don'ts video, if you don't know what an ingredient is for, you're just chucking spices around your house, and it's not going to do anything. If you want your magical workings to work, you have to understand the why. So that is the basic difference between a justice spell and a revenge spell. I'm sorry I didn't show it to you. I'd fancy redoing the spell after I had been so dramatic with it. But next time we do a witchy video, which will be in about 3 or 4 weeks, I will show you step by step how I do it, because we are going to be enchanting my new hairbrush to encourage long hair growth. I enchanted my last hairbrush, and I think it has made quite a big difference to the length, thickness and strength of my hair. I am 41 now, so I'd be expecting my hair to be getting a little bit weaker, a little bit thinner, not growing as fast, but it doesn't seem to be slowing down, or I reckon it's probably at least partially because of my enchanted hairbrush. So I'm going to show you how to do that next time we do a witchy video. That'll be in about 3 or 4 weeks time, I think. But join me on Monday for my next vlog, where I will be doing something to marginally improve my life and make myself a little bit happier, and encouraging you to come along with me on that. I'm not sure entirely what we are doing. I've got a bunch of crafty stuff lined up as well, and some DIY type stuff, and I've got a lot of videos that are in the almost finished but I have to do some real life stuff stage. So we've got a whole host of different things coming up over the next few weeks, and I hope that you will join me for those. So join me on Monday for my next vlog, which will be about something, I'm not sure. But either way, if you can't wait until then to see me again, I will be here every single morning in your shorts, taking a great big deep breath, letting you know what I'm grateful for that day. And I warmly encourage you to join me in that and let me know what you're grateful for each day as well. Because since I started this daily gratitude practice, my manifestations have accelerated. My life is basically unrecognizable from what it was when I started. I'm so much happier and I want that for you as well. So like and subscribe. Or don't, we're not your mum. But either way, you have yourself a magical week.